Hey everybody, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. Big travel day, so if you're watching this on the road or you're out of town, this is kind of give you an overview of the country, but we will focus on the Carolinas because that's kind of the area we are. But I will start broad here for everybody who's traveling across the country, and this is a wide view of the whole United States. And honestly, for a Thanksgiving holiday travel day like Thursday, that's more of a problem than I think today. Today is sometimes considered the biggest travel day, though more and more people are traveling on Tuesday. The only real big issue is this storm in the middle of the country. And honestly, the only city that's really having significant impacts is the Denver International Airport right now. And you can see there is snow in that area, but it's not unprecedented for that area. So while it's not great, Denver can handle this. It's not a big deal. If you are traveling in the middle of the country, there's some rain, but overall, there's not any major severe weather going on, any major winter storm that's going to have a huge impact on many airports, like in the Northeast or the Midwest or even the West Coast. So all in all, this is pretty much not a bad setup for a big travel day like Wednesday. Now tomorrow, this storm system becomes more of a problem. So if you are traveling on Thanksgiving Day, I think that's more of an issue. And we'll get into that in a minute. But I want to start with the severe weather outlook as we go into tomorrow. So let's talk about the severe weather outlook today. You can see we have two areas of low risk here across parts of Alabama, Mississippi, Florida Panhandle. But tomorrow is kind of the day I'm watching because you can see a little bit bigger area. It hasn't changed a lot from yesterday's outlook, but you could see the low risk area stretches from Myrtle Beach to Charlotte to Birmingham down to New Orleans. And again, this is mainly going to be in the morning hours. So if you're just planning for your Thursday, it's not an all day rain or all day storm threat. It really looks to be early in the day into the into the early afternoon before it exits the region. Now, the northern part of the system, just a heads up, there is going to be quite a bit of severe weather likely in the Northeast. So just kind of getting your head wrapped around what this storm is going to look like. Imagine to the south, we've got the severe weather here, and then up in the Northeast, this is where on Thanksgiving Day, we could have quite a bit of wintry weather. And you can see all the areas in blue right now. These are winter storm watches, which are currently in effect for areas. We're expecting some snow, a huge lake effect snow event setting up for this. So just a heads up, man, folks in the Great Lakes, especially downwind, east of Cleveland, Erie, south of Buffalo, not so much in Buffalo, it might be just south, and then the Tug Hill Plateau, and then obviously the mountains, Catskills back into areas, heading up into areas of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Pretty big severe weather outbreaks to the south, but this is also a pretty significant winter weather event to the north. So let's get into the forecast. All right, let's get right to the forecast. We'll start with the wide view. We're just going to go 48 hours with this just because the short term is really the important part. So this is today's big travel day. As I mentioned, we'll go through 3-4 o'clock this afternoon. Some rain developing in the middle of the country, but honestly, this is not that bad of a travel day as I mentioned. Tomorrow's probably a bigger deal because this low is going to crank up. And most of this is rain tonight into early tomorrow. There's not much snow for areas of central Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio, though there could be some burst in there. That's definitely something to keep an eye on for the overnight hours. I think it's going to be rain. It's really tomorrow that it starts to transition to rain. You see to the south. So this is a twofold system. We've got the winter system developing to the north, certainly have winter weather developing up here in parts of the Northeast, the Great Lakes. And then in the south, you see more scattered storms, but these are actual storms. So we'll go through time tomorrow morning. And you can see there's the snow breaking out interior sections of the Northeast, Eastern Great Lakes. But look to the south, 7 a.m., some kind of broken line of showers and storms. The real question is how strong is this line going to be? This is why I say it's not a washout tomorrow. This is 10 o'clock in the morning. Certainly not going to be rain everywhere, but where there are storms developing, some of them could be strong. You can see this line developing. So look at the time up here. You can see it's 10:20 now, but tomorrow morning around 11 a.m., probably this front moving through the area somewhere in there. So right about there is where we're going to see this line move through. So again, nothing crazy, but there's enough energy that there could be some severe weather as this pushes through. And look how strong it gets as it goes to the east. So just to give you an idea, a little bit of a shift in timing, and this line could be pretty potent. So eastern North Carolina, central part of South Carolina, Midlands, Low Country, Coastal Plain, that could be a line of pretty strong storms. And I do not want to rule out an isolated tornado in this setup. The wind looks to be the primary concern. We could see an isolated tornado there. In the Northeast, you see the big burst of snow, but what you don't see, look at the lake effect machine setting up on the back side of this. And this is really going to become the story going into Friday and Saturday. Once that low pressure system moves out, look at this epic northwest flow, west flow. So this is not your typical northerly flow. So these are lake effect bands that are probably going to be more in the west to east range. And look at some of those bands. I mean, these are going to be huge snow bands setting up as we go into Friday. Just to talk about the chances for severe to the south, this is Cape or thunderstorm, lifted index. This is kind of an instability index. You could see some of it coming there. We'll look at surface-based Cape, which is the fuel for storms. Kind of the same thing tomorrow. You can see that little perk right along that line. So again, south and east of I-85, probably the worst setup for this. And again, the significant tornado parameter. This isn't crazy high, but it's definitely there. This is the ingredients for tornadic storms tomorrow. You see a little surge right about there in that time frame. That's just before noon, so like 11 a.m., 10 to 11 a.m. tomorrow. And then to the east, this is about noon to 1. It starts to perk up. So definitely something to keep an eye on. I definitely want you to be weather aware for this tomorrow because it's not a huge risk, but it's Thanksgiving Day. Most folks are checked out of staying up to date on what's going on with things around them. They're worried about cooking, eating, and driving or flying. So just a heads up, there is definitely that potential for some strong storms there. Then we got to turn our attention to the cold. I'll briefly touch on this, but we've got more time to talk about it coming up. All right, so let's get into the cold here. I'm going to go just over the temperatures here. And once that front moves through, and you'll see it move through tomorrow, before the front gets here, there's going to be a pretty big surge in temperatures. We could be in the upper 60s for Thanksgiving Day, but then Thanksgiving night into Friday morning, here comes the cold air, starts to spill into the region. Here comes, there's the warm up tomorrow. Then here comes the cold air. That's a pretty big cold air mass. Again, not super cold for Friday, kind of seasonably cold. We get towards Saturday. This is starting to get a little colder, maybe the first freeze for many folks, which would be an incredibly late freeze. Look at teens in the mountains. So folks in the mountains that are recovering from Helene, if you don't have proper shelter, you need to get something done soon. And if you can help anybody, campers, RVs, stoves, heaters, they're going to need them this weekend. So this is Saturday. By Sunday, you see the temperatures dropping even more. Sunday morning, we're in the 20s. As we go into Sunday afternoon, a secondary surge of cold air comes down into Monday. So Monday morning, look at the lows. A lot of teens in the mountains, mid-20s here in the Piedmont, so the coldest air of the season. But that's not even the coldest morning. It's going to be Tuesday morning right here, I think. A lot of teens, but look at low 20s showing up east of the mountain. So yeah, it's cold, but it's not unprecedented cold for this time of year. It's just that it's been so warm that it'll be a shock to the system. These aren't record-breaking lows, not going to threaten the power grid. This is not this type of Arctic outbreak, but it's consistently cold. I will tell you that once this cold gets here, we will see a freeze every single night next week. And the afternoons are only going to be in the 40s. So it's a cold stretch of weather for most of next week. We will be back in the 50s by late in the week, but it is a cold stretch of weather. And by the way, December 1st is Sunday, so not crazy. So just a heads up on that. We'll talk more about the cold. We got to get through this severe weather risk first, which again, this is the system. This is the 48-hour loop. I'll loop it here. You can see that storm system developing. Snow to the north on Thanksgiving Day, severe storms to the south. Be safe. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and please travel safe. If you have outdoor plans tomorrow morning, make sure you have a backup plan.